Former military intelligence and counterintelligence officer Luis Elizondo joins us now. Thank you for making your witness today. I want the audience to know you're also author of Imminent: Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. Luis, thank you for being with us.
Chris, thank you so much for having me.
So were you worried about what you were going to say today?
Yeah, absolutely. But I got to say, Chris, I think this was really a historic day for both Congress and for the American people. I think it was a win-win. This is now the second hearing on this topic that's been open to the public. And hopefully the public is now getting an understanding of how long our government has actually been involved in this topic, despite decades of denial.
So, look, the pushback is they're no little green men. They don't have a spaceship from outside our solar system. All of these types of videos that I'm showing right now can be explained. Well, then what are they finding? This is what you did, and you're risking your reputation to come forward and speak what you say is the truth. So what do they know?
Well, Chris, first of all, I'm risking more than my reputation. I'm risking my security clearance and my ability to even earn a living. So I think it's important to know that we have absolutely been able to confirm the existence of some sort of technology that has the ability to operate with anonymity within our controlled U.S. airspace, operate over our sensitive military installations, and possibly interfere with our nuclear equities. Now, if that's not a national security concern, I don't know what is.
Now, that's why they say, so, okay, yeah, it's some other country or it's some other concern or corporate concern on Earth, and that's why they don't tell us, because it's too dangerous. What do you say to that?
So, Chris, let's look at this from a temporal perspective. Okay, we've been dealing with this for decades, and documents now have been submitted to Congress that prove without a shadow of a doubt, since the early 1950s, we've been dealing with this issue. And when I say dealing with this issue, I'm talking about objects that still to this day can operate beyond any type of performance characteristics of our modern aircraft. So I would say, look, if one were to say, well, maybe this is Russia or China today, okay, but that doesn't explain the 1950s and 60s where these aircraft were captured on radar doing 10,000, 13,000 miles an hour in a low Earth atmosphere. Okay, what we have in comparison pales. For example, the Lockheed YF-12A SR-71 can do about 3,200 miles an hour at an unclassified level, which is pretty fast. And when it wants to take a right-hand turn, it takes roughly half the state of Ohio to do that. And what we are seeing are objects that are doing 10,000, 13,000 miles an hour and are able to execute an immediate right-angle turn, do 180 degrees, pop in and out of our atmosphere, and even underwater. So where were we in the 1950s? Well, we had barely broken the sound barrier and hadn't even made it into space. What other near-peer country even existed at that point that to this day can perform like that? The answer is we can't. And if there was a country that could do that, Chris, this would be the greatest intelligence failure this country has ever faced, even eclipsing that of 9/11 by an order of magnitude, because despite the billions of dollars we pour in investment into our intelligence community, not a single thread of intelligence over the last 7 decades has given us an indication that some adversary has developed this technology in secret and been able to deploy it effectively.
And if they had it 7 decades ago, what would they be doing with it today? And nobody is, and that raises questions also. Mr. Elizondo, anytime you want to talk, anytime there are developments, or there should be and there have not been, you have an open invitation.
Thank you, Chris. My honor and privilege. Thank you very much.
By the end of the day today, federal agencies will turn over all information they have about UFOs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, known as UAPs, to the National Archives, which will then be made public. This comes as the Pentagon was just pressed on this very issue.
I'm going to take the shot. What do you got on UFOs, aliens, etc.? Go.
The truth is out there, Jeff. And the truth is, we have no evidence to indicate extraterrestrial life has visited the planet.
All right. Well, here with us is Ryan Graves. He is the first active duty fighter pilot to go public and discuss sightings. He is also the founder of Americans for Space Aerospace. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me
this morning.
Of course.
You were an F-18 fighter pilot with the U.S. Navy. You are one of the first active duty pilots to go public about sightings of UAPs. Can you tell us what you saw in the skies?
Absolutely. We came back from our deployments while we were doing our normal duties on the Eastern Seaboard, and we upgraded our radars and began to see objects in our working areas just off the coast of Virginia Beach that we just didn't know how to explain. They were often stationary or even moving supersonic, and eventually we got close enough to these objects to break them out, and they would often look like a dark cube, either black or gray, with inside of a clear sphere.
When you went up your chain of command and told them what you saw, what was the reaction you got?
Well, unfortunately, we were only able to get so far up the chain before we hit a wall. My presumption would be that this was an issue that would get resolved through some normal channel, through some way, but unfortunately that wasn't the case, and it was just an issue that was ongoing and that we had to mitigate ourselves.
You testified before a House Oversight Committee about your experience. I am curious, what motivated you to go public here, Ryan?
Well, my motivation was simple. When I saw the 2017 New York Times article and the videos that were released, I realized that that was really a cry for help, and that my colleagues on the East Coast and elsewhere were still just trying to manage this issue on their own. And so my goal was to simply be able to provide whatever information and value that I could in order to mitigate the situation, since it was going unmitigated through leadership.
So we're talking about the deadline for these documents to be handed to the National Archives, What do you ultimately hope to learn from any information disclosed by federal agencies when it comes to these UAPs?
Well, I think we have to be a bit tepid with our expectations. First off, there is going to be classified information that is submitted to the National Archives, and that doesn't mean that we'll necessarily get access to that information. Also, it has been revealed recently that the Department of Defense and other organizations have actually now until 2025 in order to release this information on a rolling basis. So I would not expect all this information to come out right now, and that we'll be seeing this over the next year come out in groupings. However, we have to understand that most of the information we would expect to be in a highly classified format. And so I don't necessarily have high hopes that this information release is going to provide the type of closure that most people are hoping for.
Yeah, I want to add to what you just said. We know Congress is planning more UFO hearings come November in just a few weeks. What do you hope to hear and learn from these hearings?
Well, of course, it would be nice to have some whistleblowers that are actually involved in the program or that have detailed information. In addition, there has been some recent releases about Immaculate Constellation and some work that supposedly has been done to stop this information from promulgating to the rest of the defense enterprise. And so, my hope would be that we get more information around how the government is really handling this information internally and how they're stopping the rest of the DoD enterprise from really having access to this information. And not just DoD, but of course by the congressional or by the constitutionally mandated members of Congress who are supposed to be privy to this type of information.
Ryan, do you think the government is taking this seriously enough?
I believe certain parts of the government are certainly taking this serious. However, I don't think that information is being promulgated to the rest of the Department of Defense or intelligence communities. And so there's a gap of awareness. And that gap of awareness affects our planning for future missions and defensive capabilities. And I think therein lies the largest fault of this issue, is that we're exposing ourselves to this national security gap, if you will, and that without full understanding of what we're dealing with, we're going to continue in that unsteady, uncertain, unsafe position.
Oh, Ryan, as more documents come out and these hearings are underway, we hope you come back. Ryan Graves, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Joining me now, I have Nick Pope, who investigated UFOs for the UK Ministry of Defense. Nick, welcome back to the show. Big hearing today. I feel like this is your Super Bowl, right? You live for these kind of moments. What are you hoping for, Nick?
Yes, absolutely, Mikey. Very exciting day. Very psyched for this. I think we're going to learn a lot. I don't think we're not going to get a smoking gun here, but we are going to get information that I think will shock Congress and will shock the public, and rightly so. As Joe said, this is absolutely a defense and national security issue, and we know from the written statements that these witnesses have already submitted to Congress, that they're going to talk quite openly about, quote, non-human intelligence, unquote, and an associated disinformation campaign to keep this from Congress and the public.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think we're going to learn anything that's going to just blow the lid right off this story?
I don't think so. And the reason for that, of course, is this is an open public hearing. And of course, when NewsNation first covered the story of David Grush, the whistleblower who came forward last year, it was noticeable when he testified that just as you got tantalizingly close to some of the really sensitive bits, he fell back on the statement that he could only really discuss certain things in a secure, compartmented information facility, in other words, a secure room. So, but that in itself tells you that you're getting close. So watch for those no comments in particular.
Yeah, and I want to talk about, 3 of the 4 witnesses who are testifying today in front of Congress. They've shared their accounts here on NewsNation, confirming their claims that UAPs do in fact exist. Nick, take a quick listen, and I'll talk to you on the other side.
You must appreciate people watching this, hearing you talking about aliens, recovered craft, recovered bodies. It sounds crazy.
Well, as I've said before, I'm not saying it doesn't sound crazy. What I'm saying is it's real.
The American public has a right to know the new nature of reality we know, and that the Defense Department and the intelligence community has realized and has evidence of. That's not fair to the American public.
It's up to journalists like you and me and these brave whistleblowers to in the public to demand that Congress act and do its job.
Yeah, so Nick, there's been a common theme here, and that is that the American public deserves answers. What's it going to take for that to finally happen?
Well, I think it's going to take Congress keeping the pressure on this. But also, of course, the important thing is now with a second Trump term coming up, and with President Trump having said that he will disclose information, for example, that's been held back on the JFK files, and he was also asked about information on UAP, and so early in his second term, I think the president might join the fray, and that would really push it over the line, because then it becomes an order from the commander-in-chief to declassify and release this to the public.
Yeah, well, you stole my last question, Nick, and that was, are you getting any signals that soon to be, again, President Trump will peel back the curtain in any sort of new kind of way? Nick Pope, I know you'll be watching. We'll debrief with you soon on what we get. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
You're looking live at Capitol Hill, where a highly anticipated congressional hearing is set for today on a topic that's moved from the fringes to the mainstream. Unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, better known to most of us as UFOs. You've got government officials, military experts, and even some whistleblowers who are expected to testify, including 3 who first broke their stories exclusively to us here at NewsNation over the course of the last year. NewsNation's Joe Khalil is in Washington with the latest ahead of today. Joe, good morning to you. What are you expecting from this hearing, and what kind of testimony are we about to get?
What we're expecting, Markey, is sort of building on the hearing that happened last year, focused on this very topic, on this UAP issue. And you're seeing more and more members of Congress consider this a serious issue that's a national security topic. Last year, we heard for the first time people who were under oath, former military officials, saying that they feel the government is aware of technology that is not of human origin. That really shook a lot of people. If you haven't heard that claim before, that is an absolutely bombshell claim to make under oath in front of Congress. And we're going to hear similar things later on today. The Pentagon still maintains they are not aware of this, that they say they have not experienced any technology they consider to be non-human. But today, we've obtained parts of the opening statement for Lou Elizondo, one of the key witnesses today. He, at one time, was the director of the Pentagon's program called Advanced Aerospace Threat ID Program, or ATIP. It was the Pentagon's research arm that focused on UAPs, or UFOs. This is what Elizondo is going to say later this morning here. Quote, let me be clear. UAP are real, advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government, are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. Another witness today, Tim Gallaudet, who at one time, he's a former Rear Admiral in the Navy, at one time was acting director of NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. He's going to say in part, we know from last year's hearing and recent statements, publications by credible whistleblowers, that UAP, non-human intelligence, represent a new realization that we're not the only advanced intelligence in the universe. Again, Marnie, these statements certainly are going to shake people, but that is what we will hear today. And again, we mentioned Congress taking this issue seriously as something that national defense needs to really be accountable for.
Yeah, we're eager to see what is shared today. Joe Khalil, thank you so much. I want to now bring in Chrissy Newton, writer and podcaster for The Debrief. Good morning to you, Chrissy. Your podcast is called Rebelliously Curious with Chrissy Newton. It's space, science, UFO themed. So I got to ask you, are you geeking out about today's hearing, first and foremost?
For sure. 100%. Thank you for having me too. I'm geeking out. I think a lot of people are. If you love UFOs, this is game day.
It's game day.
For
it's
sure.
It's your Super Bowl. What do you think we'll really get from it? I mean, anything that blows the lid off this story?
Well, it's hard to say if it's going to blow the lid off the story. I hope it does. He's someone who loves this topic, but I'm not sure if it's going to really blow open, right? This is just kind of slow movements towards, hopefully, is what people like to call the word disclosure, if you like it or not. But what I think is really going to be interesting is that we have Michael Gold, who formerly worked for NASA. NASA's been very, very quiet about the topic for the past year since their independent research report. And it's interesting to know that Mike Gold actually worked on that report as well. So I'm really curious myself what he's going to say, because we have not heard from him. We've heard from everybody else. We've heard from every single other person that's testifying. We've heard from them from a media capacity, but we've never really heard much from Mike Gold.
Yeah, and speaking of, I want to play some sound because as Joe was just laying out, 3 of the 4 witnesses today testifying before Congress, they've shared their accounts here on NewsNation, confirming their claims that UAPs exist. Let's take a quick listen to them.
You must appreciate people watching this, hearing you talking about aliens, recovered craft, recovered bodies. It sounds crazy.
Well, as I've said before, I'm not saying it doesn't sound crazy. What I'm saying is it's real.
The American public has a right to know the new nature of reality we know, and that the Defense Department and the intelligence community has realized and has evidence of. That's not fair to the American public.
It's up to journalists like you and me and these brave whistleblowers to and the public to demand that Congress act and do its job.
Yeah, so Chrissy, just listening to all these people who have come forward, there's a common denominator here, and that's that the American public deserves answers. What's it going to take for that to happen?
Need more people to come forward. We need to have less overclassification. That's a big thing. But we also have to be really mindful about national security. It's a very big deal. Former DNI, John Ratcliffe, is going to actually be working within the Trump administration. And he has been championing the topic when he formerly was in his position. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen when he comes on the scene and what he's going to say. Hopefully some overclassification does die down a little bit and we start getting to the point and start unraveling this slowly, because we have to be mindful that these could be foreign adversaries and we do need to protect national security. That is probably the most important outside of finding out really what is going on.
Yeah, I know Congressman Tim Burchett called today in all these hearings, kind of peeling back the layers of an onion slowly but surely. We're eager to see and excited to see what is shared today. Chrissy Newton, thank you for your time this morning. I know you'll be watching too. And congressional lawmakers spent hours asking UFO experts about the government and unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UFOs. One whistleblower saying Wednesday was a historic day in the search for transparency. Luis Elizondo says UAPs are real and part of a secret arms race. Joining me now, I have Micah Hanks, host of the Micah Hanks program and co-founder of The Debrief, a news website. Micah, good morning to you. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Marky.
So we all went into yesterday, right, saying, okay, give us something to work with here. Any big bombshells or nuggets that really stood out to you?
Well, certainly a lot of things that will be of interest to people over the next 4 years, but I think there are a lot of us who really watch the UAP subject who are still wanting more. We have a lot of former officials who have, gone on the record under oath and said, listen, there's more to what the U.S. government knows about UAP than what Congress is being told and what the American people are being told. Unfortunately, right now, most of what we are hearing is information pertaining to alleged secret programs, whistleblower allegations. And again, what I think many people want is more confirmed information, more individuals on the record. A lot of this coming secondhand to journalists, which again, unfortunately, given the climate and the nature of the subject, that's understandable to an extent. But again, I think a lot of people came away from yesterday's hearing saying we'd like to see a little more tangible evidence.
Yes. Is it fair to say you walked away dissatisfied?
Well, on the one hand, there was some dissatisfaction, but I think that there are also a lot of interesting things that came out of the hearing yesterday. For instance, we had a former official, Tim Gallaudet, saying that he had met with the DOD's current UAP investigative group, ARROW, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And he described that meeting as being almost more like what he characterized, his own terms here, as an influence operation. He said that essentially they tried to convince him that UAP cases that he was aware of and that other former officials had experienced might involve U.S. technologies and things along these lines. And so really, I think that as far as dissatisfaction, some of these officials were the ones who came away saying we're extremely dissatisfied with the level of scrutiny being placed on this by the government and also what we are being told.
I know that Congresswoman Mace said that the hearing was a success. I wanted to play a bit of sound from her because she raised some serious questions with former Pentagon official Lou Elizondo during the hearing. Take a quick listen.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
Why are people, anytime they ask, why are they always thwarted? Why are they always judged? Why is they always have misinformation spread? Why is there always retribution? Why is it always met with an ear? What's the why? If it doesn't exist, why is it such a problem?
Yeah, Congresswoman Mace hopes that this will help more whistleblowers come forward. But Micah, what's it going to take to see that evidence at some point to back up these claims?
Well, according to the former lawmakers, including Mr. Luis Elizondo, who you played in the clip there, it's going to take more people coming forward and more people being willing to talk about this. But one of the issues that those former officials were discussing during this session yesterday had been the prevailing stigma. And this had been something that also Mike Gold, one of the witnesses providing testimony there, formerly with NASA, Mike Gold really emphasized this as having been part of the study group that had been looking into UAP within NASA. He said without this, or rather with this stigma, it even impeded his study group's ability to be able to look at this. Luis Elizondo and others are saying, look, we've come forward. We need others to come forward and to really go on the record and say there is a problem here. Government transparency is a real issue. We need them to be more forthcoming with both Congress and the American people.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are wondering, will a new Trump administration kind of change the game when it comes to transparency on this at all? We'll just wait and see. Micah Hanks, thanks so much for your time this morning. Appreciate your expertise.
Thank you, Marky.